Yo, what's good everybody? My name's Alckemy. Welcome to the channel. Today, you and I are going to be taking a look at Nano Studio 2. Now, before we get started, a big shout out to RL Decoy. Thank you so much for getting me hooked up with a copy via Blip Interactive. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm not going to be giving you like the super duper ins and outs of this, this, by the way, is a digital audio workstation both for iOS and iPad. But I will be giving you like a brief synopsis about how to kind of navigate throughout this. And, you know, if you're wanting information on whether or not this is something that's for you, then I'm hoping to answer that question, not necessarily sway you to, Jesus Christ, that scared me, to make a purchase. So within that, if you haven't subscribed already, I would love if you did what somebody just did and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, let's figure out what it is that we're doing. So this is actually a very basic program, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. The things that I don't like about this in particular are that sample importing is kind of a chore. So if I go to settings and then I go to files, manage audio files, import, for one, there's a lot of menus, but two, I can't use my files, or like I can't use my file browser, which is where all my samples are. So that means that I'd have to go through Audio Share, which I think Audio Share is a paid app, and that kind of stinks. The other thing is that there are no audio tracks. So if I go here to back to this guy, this is our layout, ta-da, timeline, and I go this way, there's no way to add audio. And for me, like, my centerpiece of workflow is by mangling and manipulating audio. So you can do a this is kind of ghetto, but you can do a workaround where, like, let's say you're recording something. So I actually filmed this video like 5 times and I butchered some names, unfortunately, and I'm like, I can't leave them hanging like that. So yeah, so if I've got this like stupid little sketch right here, it's stupid. Don't look to be impressed. But yeah, all right. What you can technically do is you can do something to where you actually record this, and then you can import that into Koala Sampler, which is kind of like a OG hack, but I don't really know what the quality is going to be like, so I just came up with that myself, but what can you say? So anyways, that's cool. This is what this looks like on its own. You can see that there's a lot of features here. So if I just add another thing, by default we're going to get Obsidian, which I'll talk about in just a second. But we've got different things that we can snap to here. Zooming is really cool. You can also just use your fingers, or that's kind of how I would do it. You also got this right here, which will stack the tracks for you or expand them, which I think is nice. And then if you have a bunch of tracks, let's go expand, then you can use this to scroll, which is pretty cool. And then if you want to draw a clip, you just go draw, grab your selection, which is nice. And then you've got yourself a dang old MIDI clip. Yay. If you want to draw in notes, double tap on the clip, then go into the draw. You can yeah, dope. So don't do what I did. Well, actually, why not? Yeah, you can totally do what I did. But for whatever reason, if you want to grab everything, you can duplicate it, which is really cool. And then the one on the left moves the notes. The slider on the right makes them longer or shorter, which is nice. Then you can move them, you can transpose them by 1, you can transpose them by an octave. So even though I think this is velocity here, even though this is like a really strange workflow to me, I do really appreciate that they have like very clear buttons for control. I think that's very forward thinking, and that's a workflow that I actually really appreciate. And I think that all of the other DAWs that are on iOS could learn a thing or two from that. So I'm going to get out of this abomination here just by double tapping on this guy twice. And I'm going to delete that and pretend like nothing ever happened, because it didn't. But if I wanted to maybe try this again, I can go draw, do the same thing. We can go here, we can double click, and then we can just make a very simple melody. Let's go back into draw, and we can go. No, just kidding. And then we could go maybe something like, yeah, Cool. Now you can see how this is all off, and what we can do is hit that, and then we can go actions, we can go quantize, and this is really cool because we've got either use grid or also start, length, and end, which are some nice options. I'm going to go 16, no swing, and hit quantize, and now everything is a little bit closer in time. And then I'll just grab this guy and just be like, get over there. Cool. Also, we can make it longer. Very easy melody. So behind all of this, that's our automation. We'll come back to that later. We can double click on Obsidian and it looks like this. And then the way that this works is using the tabs over on the left. So if I want to change the patch, which I would recommend, especially if you're a beginner, we can find something interesting. Let me see. We can just maybe click on something. That sounds kind of cool. Yeah. Dope. See, that's how easy it can be. It's like, don't make music complicated. And that's why I like stuff like this, is because it just kind of is like, just pick something, make a melody, get your beat down, enjoy the music making process. Don't get caught up in, no, I can't resample and this and that. And basically, I'm talking to myself because that's the kind of person I am, but what can you say? So if we hit this edit tab over here, then we can explore the Obsidian synth, which has a bunch of different synthesis types, which I think is actually kind of cool. It's relatively limited, but it's still, again, a great introduction to how synthesis works, because you've got different oscillator types. You've got up to 3 oscillators. You've got some voicing options if you want to get that unison in, which is great. It has a wavetable oscillator, which has different wavetables. Unfortunately, you can't import your own. That makes me sad, but it's okay. You've got 2 filters. You've got 5 LFOs, ADSR types, which is super useful. And then over down here on the effects tab, your spatial effects are over here on the right, and then your mod matrix is over here. And if you don't know what the mod matrix is, it has nothing to do with Neo or Trinity or anything of the sort. It is where you basically tell things what to do in a very bullying way. So let's say I wanted to, make this move on its own, right? Well, what I would do is go to the next thing. I'd go source, LFO, LFO1, and then to the destination, you say, you go over here and go to the multi-effects. And then we go to the multi-effects depth and set the depth to 100%. And when we turn that on, this little guy should, in theory, be moving. You can also set this to a quote-unquote multiplier, which is kind of modding a mod. Basically, if you set this to knob 1 or something, and you come back to this synth, that means that knob 1 is going to be controlling whatever is attached to it. So that's kind of how you can set macros and whatnot, which is kind of cool. Now, what is cool as well is we can also change this to a scale. So you've got a bunch of different scales here. I have never heard of some of these, like the klezmer, Ryukyu, Hawaiian, Balinese. So that's kind of unique, which I think is dope. And then once you set a scale, though, then basically everything becomes all the white keys. Yeah. I'm like half expecting a kabuki to like bust out of my closet and be like, yo. I'm like, that'd be pretty sick. So within all that, though, like you can get into some relatively complex stuff and complex modulation. I do appreciate that these filters have different shapes on here, particularly like with formants, because when you're moving the cutoff, as you can see, you get stuff like this, and this is basically multi-filters. You can recreate this in an EQ or something, but the fact that it's built in means that you've got more options, which means that you can make better sounds. So it's kind of weird of like what limitations are available, but it's like just enough to be able to make stuff that I think is very capable and unique, and I do appreciate that. So once all this stuff is out of the way, kind of pull off of this and cool. Yeah, once all this stuff is out of here, then what we can do is go into the mixer And this is the most efficient way that I could find this, but we can either add MIDI effects or audio effects. So if you have some kind of third-party arpeggiator or something built in, I don't think that this has, yeah, this doesn't have any built-in MIDI effects, which is kind of a bummer, but there is a lot of free stuff or things that are relatively cheap. So you can use Scalar, you can use the Fugue Machine, Riffer is like $7. Aphelion is really cool, but you can add that if you want to. What I'm going to do though is I'm just going to go into, sorry, I just did the same thing twice. I'm going to go into the audio effects here and show you all of the external ungodly amount of plugins that I already have for my iPad. But we can do something like Timeless 3. That worked. I didn't do that on purpose, but whatever. And we can, you know, just add some cool little things. If I'm Bob Ross, happy little trees. We can randomize the taps here and just, you know, give some small adjustments. Maybe make that a little slower. Come over here, full screen the plugin. Just pull back on the mix a bit and go back into our synth. And we can add effects in and, you know, basically continue to process our sound in that way. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is the slate track, which is the built-in drum machine. Now, I say drum machine because it's not a drum synth. There is no synthesis with drums here. You want to use Obsidian for that. But what you can do with this is if you already got samples in here, then you can use those samples and whatnot and build your own drums and whatnot. But I do think that there are some like very beginner friendly functions that are within this. So for one, I'm not very like great at finger drumming. I'm all right, but you're going to hear some latency on here just because of the speakers. But okay, obviously I'm out of time or whatever, but you can definitely do that. So yeah, you can have lots of fun with that and whatever. There's a bunch of different kits that you can choose from. And then there is also in-app purchases that you can use to get more kits and whatnot. But within this, I think what's really neat is that there are quite a few options that you can use that, again, are just enough to make this more interesting. So for one, you can change the direction of the playback. So which I think is pretty cool. You can edit the sample if you want. I don't think that it's like super robust or anything, but it does give you a couple of options. It doesn't have like a slicer or anything as far as I know, and if it does, then I would like to know because that makes this a lot more valuable for sure. I do think that you can layer the sample if you want to, so you can use multiple things, so that's kind of cool if you want to make layered claps and whatnot. And then on the pads, you've got a few different things. Now, the most important thing that we'll get to in just a second is the effects bus, but just for my sake, I'm going to send both the kick and snare to effects bus 1, and then we'll revisit that in a second. But you've got your ADSR, you've got your trigger modes on here. You can loop it if you want to. You can change the pitch here. You can set a, I think that this is a pitch, so maybe a, yeah, so you can set a pitch envelope if you want to, and then we can also change the pad effects, which you get two. You get a filter, and then you also get some distortion. So if you want to do some soft clip in, give this a little bit of oomph. I can hear it now, all those people in the background just waiting to get on their mumble rap from hearing that 808. Sorry, I'm jaded. But yeah, so when it comes into that, there's quite a bit that you can kind of do with this. That's really cool. And then in the setup here, you can change the colors, you can change the names, you can set the polyphony, you can set the MIDI note range, which is dope. So as I was saying from before, if you go into the effect bus here, then you can send everything into up to 4 different buses. So I would probably send the kick and snares into a fundamental group or something of the sort, to which you've got already built-in EQ, compression, filter, and sends, which are both delay and reverb. And with this, you can kind of create an interesting kit, because you can have a bunch of stuff going to these different buses that have different EQs and different aspects of compression and stuff. As far as I know, I don't think that there's actually a way that you can sidechain. You might be able to with external effects, but I don't think that there's a way to do it without. Maybe we can explore that together real quick. So if I go here and we go to audio effects and we go to add compressor. Oh, you can. Okay, great. So you can do a sidechain. You just got to tell it where to go. So my bad. That's important. We're not going to do that right now, but yeah, so you can sidechain to that kind of stuff, which is kind of cool. I think that if I'm not mistaken, like doesn't Cubase like not have sidechaining in it or something because you can't bus stuff, or there's something going on with that to where like you can't send stuff to a bus or whatever, which I think is absolutely silly. What can you say? That's like the weird thing with iPad stuff. Sorry, I digress, but the weird thing with iPads is like there's always some kind of omission that's within all of these DAWs, and I guess for this particular case you can't do audio, which I'm like, come on. But anyways, back to what I was talking about. Yeah, so up to 4 different buses. The EQ is 3 bands, which I think is pretty cool. And then this is your out, like your master channel strip, which has, again, EQ, compression, the return amounts here, and built-in limiter, which is dope. It would be cool if this was a clipper instead of a limiter, especially for drums. I think that would be a lot more useful, but not everybody's on that game, and you know, it's fine. Yeah, I'm not going to be a clip snob. But yeah, so you can choose between different rooms and stuff here, or plates and halls, and then you can change in between the different delay types within this. But once you kind of have like an understanding of, you know, whatever it is that, like, you know, making melodies and adding basses and stuff and then coming up with some kind of groove, like that's really all music is. It doesn't need to be anything complicated. So, you know, if I kind of pull up on this and I'm, you know, going to turn on the metronome or something and try to bang out a drum. Just kidding. Sorry. Alright. Hopefully you guys are having fun with me. So what I'm going to do instead, because that latency is just god-awful, is we're going to just program some drums real quick. So I'm going to set this grid to like 1/16 and try not to embarrass myself again, but I'm going to hit the draw thing now and open this up. And we will find our kick. So there we go. We can just go boom, boom, clap, clap, boom, clap. I think that's what we want here. So almost, but not quite. So we're gonna grab this guy, move that over, and then there we go. And now we will select this like that and go duplicate ×4. Sick. And then we can move this over like that. And then if we're lazy and we don't want to move everything off, or maybe we do, so we can just grab this with the select like this, and we're going to turn the grid off now to no grid. And now what we will do is close this. We need to kind of zoom in on this, maybe 128, so I can at least kind of see what I'm doing. We can just nudge this over to be just a little bit early. I'm not really sure how that happened, but something is up here to where this repeating pattern is not where it's supposed to be. I can already tell, but that's okay, because we can always try that again. So this needs to be here. Yeah, so something is not right with that. Boom, clap, clap, boom, clap. There we go. Now these guys are a little bit off, so we'll move this here and move that over. And now when we get through this, hopefully this will sound like it's supposed to, but Alright, so that last phrase is a little bit off. That's okay. But we can kind of move that over. And now we've got our beat sketched. And then we can kind of, you know, just get some hi-hats in or something if we want to. We can set this grid to 164. That's a reverse sample. Go draw. Gosh, that's so small. You know, just something like that. So hit play. Maybe not that last one. And then what we can do is, sure, we will select all this, row, then go duplicate, times 4. And we could probably just see what that sounds like or something on this and just see if it's any good. Sounds terrible, but that's okay because we can always kind of go back. But anyways, I hope that you kind of get what I'm getting at here. You can kind of take all of this and just use it as a means to, you know, sketch some beats, which I think is nice. Now it would be really cool if I could hold the duplicate button. Oh, ho, ho, you can see that's really nice. Wait, hold on. Can I do that? Select. Duplicate. Duplicate. Do they have a 2 times X? I guess not. Alright, I thought I could. That would have been really sweet, but I guess I can't. But we can kind of, again, just kind of move this back where we need to. It's not really that big of a deal. Even just move it here, perhaps. And again, it's going to take some getting used to, like I said from before, but I actually don't think that this workflow is terrible. But once you kind of have that, then that's just a matter of messing around with these beats and these clips, and then adding your basses and stuff. You can add another instance of Obsidian. You know, you can just pull up a patch. You can get really, really lazy with it if you want to. I'm sure that there's an 808 in here somewhere. Go a kick, nice. Hard bass. Wait, I want to see what that sounds like. Alright, that's pretty cool. OO bass. It's pretty dope. Let's go back to chromatic. Yeah, so you can kind of come into this and just kind of maybe make a single clip, because you don't really need to repeat this. And double click. And you can just kind of draw here. And give yourself a little bit of a draw there. Very simple, but now that we have that, we can kind of pull out of this, and then we can go, all right, duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. And then there we go. We got a bass, we got a melody, we got some crappy drums, and this is the building blocks into sketching your beat. And so once you have something like that, I'm just going to get rid of this, but that's going to make the beat sound 10 times better. But yeah, now that you have something like this, then you can get into your mixing and stuff, or you can get into your side chaining and all that. Or what you could even do is split this. Right now this is just the kick and clap, so if I wanted a different percussive pattern, undo, I can pull up another slate track and then just use this for percussion. So maybe I just wanted to go draw like that, and then just a very simple 1/16 or something, right? And then just go draw, maybe I don't like this sample, so I can move this up. We need all of them, so that's drawing. I need to select them. Even though I'm doing like very basic stuff and it's taking me a lot longer than I'm used to for making stuff like this, it's still chill. I'm like having a good time, and I hope that you all are too, because I don't really care. But now that we have something like that, we can see what that sounds like. So great. Now we can just duplicate that. Boom, boom, boom. And then we've got a cool little beat that we can sketch and then either forget about it and pretend that nobody ever saw or heard this ever again, or we can throw it in our DAW and, you know, split it up and get into the exporting thing or whatever. And, you know, or go into our mixdown thing here to where we can decide how we want this to be exported. So we can export this all the way up into, wow, 128, 256, 320 kilobits per second, 32-bit floating point, which is cool. And then we can also trim silence or zip the output file. Yeah, there's quite a bit of options for exporting, which I think is pretty cool. What's our sample rate at? It can go all the way up to 96K. That's sick. You can normalize the files. Yeah, you can set a different region. There's all that. So that's pretty cool. So anyways, that's a very brief introduction into Nano Studio 2 on recording things. I hope that you all weren't expecting me to make a crazy banger or anything like that, but just as a means of, you know, being like, all right, well, let's throw some notes down and let's get a cool little beat going on. You know, that was fun. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you again to Blip Interactive and to RL Decoy. I really appreciate you all kind of letting me review your software and have some fun with it. And I'll be, you know, hopping into this every once in a while just to, you know, do something different and switch it up, or maybe try to work with stuff with limitations while I'm not trying to teach. So anyways, thank you all so much. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.